This podcast is sponsored by Kadan Kadan. Kadan Kadan is a new groupage app that allows you to share space within a shipping container so that you can save costs when it comes to your logistics and transportation. Visit kadankadan.com to learn more or visit the Instagram page Kadan Kadan Official. Good day, everyone. This is Malobi from the Kadan Kadan podcast. Today I have a guest, Leke, who is going to be talking about his business, his investments. I don't want to ruin the surprise for you guys, but I'm just keen to hear his story because he has a unique perspective that I think a lot of people that don't live in Nigeria, like full time, would have. So I wanted to hear a bit about his story and some of his hurdles and what he's investing in and why he chose that. So yeah, Leke, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Malobi. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So first things first, Leke, how did we meet? We actually met on a business network called PBN, which you, I believe, are the co-founder of.
Yes.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about PBN? This is not necessarily a promo, but I think people would be interested to hear about it because this is actually we connected in the first place. So can you tell us a brief thing about PBN before we start talking about your business and what you do in Nigeria with agribusiness?
Yeah. PBN, Premier Business Network, is actually a network of professionals and entrepreneurs that have something going, that has either launched and do something in Nigeria and in diaspora. Of course, we started out as, it started out really as agriculture, and many people in PBN probably will not know this. It started out as an agri group. Where we can meet and talk about, agriculture and opportunities in general, opportunities in agriculture in general. Before then, we start inviting people because we realized that we cannot do it all alone. We have to bring people with finance background, people with other forms of background into the group. And then, it's an invite-only group. And now we have metamorphosized into what we now know as Premier Business Network, into what it is now, where we have diverse talent, people from all over the world and all over, Africa and also some parts of Europe. And yeah, that was how we started, and that's where we are.
Amazing. And I joined last year and I'm definitely, renewing my membership. It's one of the best, groups, networks. I
Yeah.
don't know what Bola calls it, but it's
And
one of the best.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
it,
I
it's
gi- and I
one of
give it to, and he's not here though, but I give it to Bola. He's been front and center of it. He's
Mm,
been the main. I mean, that as much as I'm more of a co-founder and co-convener of PBN, he has taken the bull by the horn and run with the affairs full time with our operational team, and they're doing a very fantastic job. Like and you can testify as well. I barely get
mhm.
involved in anything operational except for, decision making or executive kind of responsibilities. But day-to-day operations, I'll give it to him. He's the one that grew the community to what it is now and to what PBN really is. It was all Bola with the team that I would give to him. So if you renew your
Amazing.
membership, always remember that Bola is behind it.
Amazing. And the last thing I'll say about PBM before we get into it is that, it's one of those few groups where if I ask for anything, I always get an answer, or I always get
Right,
put through to someone that might be able to help me. So it's
right.
it's it's a network of people that are actually doing stuff, not
Yeah.
just, your regular, WhatsApp chat, So it's
And
it's
that
it's
was the
really
goal.
fun.
That was what we had in mind. Remember, I mentioned earlier that we realized very early on that we cannot do it all alone. We have to
Hmm.
bring people from, with diverse background and from all over the place. That way, you're just one hop, I'll call it a hop, or one connection away from someone that can get you to where you're going to. And then you can testify to that as well. If I don't know about it, somebody else in the group would definitely know someone who could help. So
Hmm.
that was the goal. And I'm glad that we're getting there. And then Bola um is really working to make sure that we even surpass that.
Amazing. Okay, so let's get into agribusiness stuff. You're the founder also of LSX Farms. So
Yes.
what I like to do on the show is I like to let my guests actually, talk about what they do because they probably are the best people to talk about it. So can you tell
Right.
us a bit about what is LSX Farms? When did you start it, and what made you to decide to get into this business?
So LSX Farm started out as and is still an agribusiness, and we're into primary production, which is the farming aspect, what everybody knows as farming. We grow majorly cash crops, which is coconut, cashew, and oil palm. And why did LSX Farm choose to go into that? I'm in diaspora, right? There was a time I was in African store and I saw the cost of palm oil, for example, and I'm like, okay, and I realized that palm oil came from Ghana. And I was looking at some of this African food and commodities, and I'm like, okay, if they're this expensive in the US, that presents a unique opportunity to be able to produce in Nigeria, low cost of labor and things along those lines, and then bring it into the US. Again, the business opportunities. So that was number one thing. I'm like, okay, this looks like a very unique opportunity to get into, especially palm oil that has universal, usage. Let me use that word. And so we started out the research in 2016 and say, okay, where and what could we do? How can we? I didn't want to do personally. It's not something I would like to do annual crops or, you know, biannual crops where you have to do 6 months. I just want something I will grow once, nurture for the next 2, 3 years, and the next 35 years I don't have to bother. I'm just going to maintain the plantation. That was the decision. That was what actually made us go into cashew or palm and coconut for a start. So we started out planting in 2019, and then we were on cruise control until COVID hit. And we started out growing almost 25,000 oil palm seedlings, 15,000 coconut seedlings, and then cashew seedlings like 7,000. And we lost almost 80% of all of those because of COVID. During COVID economic lockdown, there was nothing that was happening. We couldn't go to farm. My team couldn't go anywhere. We're all home. So yeah, that was how it all started and what we currently do. Now, we are also into the production of palm kernel oil. What that is we crush palm kernel nuts. So we have a factory that was completed last year, and we crush palm kernel nuts to produce palm kernel oil, which is used, when refined, it turns to edible oil that you call vegetable oil in the market, and palm kernel cake, which is used for animal feeds, especially piggery. So we completed the factory last year and we started operation. This is our 6th month now since the factory started operation. And so far, so good.
Interesting. A lot of people when they start going into agriculture, agribusiness, they tend to maybe just focus on one crop, right? And you
Right.
decided to pick at least three. So first of all, did have you ever gone into farming before you got into this, or was this like
No,
just jumping in,
no,
straight
I've never
in?
gone into farming. I've never gone into farming. But what I was seeing was not farming. Farming was just a means to an end. What I was seeing was a business opportunity whereby if we farm and be able to produce these things, we can actually make money. So it wasn't really because of farming, technically. It was because, okay, farming could get us there. How do I produce commodity? Is it either I buy, export, or I grow myself? And I chose to grow myself, assemble a team of those that have been doing it and also needed support, bring them on board on my team. And then, set expectations, set clear goals. We have a target, and this is what we need to do. And then we jumped right into it. So it was more not because I have a farming background. It was more because I wanted to enhance the opportunity in agribusiness and agriculture, considering the low cost of labor in Nigeria and several opportunities that exist in Nigeria due to population as well. So that was why I went into it, not because I have a background in agriculture. Yes, I did take some classes, understand sustainable agriculture and several aspects of agriculture marketing, and several other things like that. But those were not enough for me to go into it. Those were knowledge, excuse me, those were knowledge I acquired because I am in it.
Very, very interesting. And the fact that you mentioned you didn't have a background in agriculture and you also live in the diaspora. Would you mind sharing like what your actual background is, just so that maybe people that are kind of thinking, okay, I'm also not experienced in agriculture, but I would like to invest
Right.
in agribusiness in Nigeria. So what's actually
Right.
your day to day?
My day-to-day job is actually in cybersecurity. So that's what I do for a living. I'm more an IT professional. I do cybersecurity full time. So that's what I do. But beyond that, though, I always thought of what if I stop doing cybersecurity? What else can I do? Right? Even if you make all the money in the world, how can you put your money to work? And that is where the concept of business comes in. And what kind of business can you invest in long term? I'm a patient investor. I'm like, okay, what can I do that long term I can sit back? And if I choose to retire, I can retire to whatever I set up now. And coming from a family where, my mom had a restaurant and I understand the business of food a little bit, growing up in that environment. And I have a couple of aunts that also own a restaurant. We have options for everything. We do not have any option for food. No matter how, let all hell break loose, people will eat. So it doesn't matter what you sell, as long as it is what people will eat, you will always have your own target customers. And bearing that in mind, having that at the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, going into food production will be the best thing for me to do, considering all circumstances, regardless of what my background is. I do know that I can assemble a team that can help me get there. I work in cybersecurity. My own CEO is not a cybersecurity guy. He didn't even have bachelor's in cybersecurity. He had bachelor's in business. Yes, but he hired somebody who knows about what I am doing, which is me, to get him there. And that's the same mindset and perspective I look at, setting up an agribusiness and hire people that can help me get there.
Well said. Well said. So I would like to talk about, your journey so far, because at the beginning of your story, you mentioned that due to COVID, you lost at least like 80%
Right,
of your investment, right? And a lot of
right.
people will hear that and they'll be like, you're crazy. Like, why, why would you, why would you keep putting the money back into it,
Good.
especially with the challenges in Nigeria? So, I mean, what really is driving that, relentlessness and keeping you going despite having lost all that money?
Okay, so when we lost 80%, we had to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, now something that this shows vulnerability in agribusiness or agriculture or any business in general. We have a pandemic that hit that was beyond our control. What else could we do to make sure we mitigate this kind of occurrence in future? Then that was so post-COVID was 2021, right? And by the end of 2021, I decided with the team, I said, okay, we need to do forward integration rather than pumping money into expanding our existing farm, getting more land and getting more seedlings. We raised seedlings on our farm. We had a lot of seedlings that I've raised on the farm at that time. I just said, we're not going to sell this seedling. Let us plant this seedling. And we're not doing too much. We're not pouring resources into developing or scaling up our farmland. What we will do, however, is to do forward integration, and that was what gave birth to the factory, where we will start processing. And the second reason we went into processing earlier than scheduled, we scheduled going into processing by the end of 2024. Q4 this year was the schedule. But I had to bring it back to 2022 because we approached banks for finance to finance agri equipment, tractors and implements and things along those lines. They couldn't because of the risk involved and your repayment. How would you repay? They're scared about that. You're not going to be making money, you know. But beyond that, again, keep in mind, my goal for going into agribusiness was to set up something I can retire to 5, 10 years from now. So even though the initial loss took a hit, I still kept my eyes on the goal and say, no, we're not deviating from this goal. This is not a short-term thing for us, for me and the team. This is not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. So we would persevere and try and walk a way around knowing the system and say, okay, what could we do more that would still keep us in business. And that was what gave birth to the factory and say, okay, we're still playing in the oil palm or cash crop that we eventually set out to do. We just start, processing palm kernel nuts, which is still going to be one of our byproducts when the plantation is ready and fully mature. By the time we have fully mature plantation, we would extract palm oil and get the palm kernel nut and then crack the palm kernel nut and extract the palm kernel oil, which is what we currently do today. So it was the challenges we faced and the lessons we learned from COVID was why we now moved into, without being distracted and discouraged. That was why we moved into processing. And then the processing actually opened up a lot of other opportunities in terms of access to finance and things like that, because now it seems to the bank that this is more tangible, less risky. You have asset that could actually be claimed in case you default. And then it's something that, would generate cash flow, if not on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And those things was what now kept us going.
Okay, so so from what I understand, I just want to kind of be clear, especially for the people listening. Are you
Right.
saying that right now you have a factory that's
Yes.
producing palm oil from palm that you're buying from other people? Are you like actually
Palm
sourcing
kernel
it
oil.
elsewhere?
Yes,
Yeah.
we source it from merchants. We source our
Okay,
palm kernel
okay.
nuts from merchants. We have commodity merchants that deals with, just the same way you have merchants that actually store maize and sell maize in large quantity. We have merchants that stores palm kernel nuts and sell in large quantity. So those are the ones we work with. We have close to maybe 7 merchants that we work with that brings palm kernel nuts to the factory, and then we crush, get palm kernel oil, and we sell the palm kernel oil to edible oil refineries to refine and produce vegetable oil. So I produce the crude palm kernel oil and then, onward delivery to edible refineries.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. That makes sense. Okay. So another thing that comes to mind is that, in Nigeria we don't have or a lot of people, most people don't have electricity
Yeah,
24/7, and that's a
right.
major challenge for businesses. So how do you actually overcome that, and how does that affect your business?
To be fair though, our location, we have a dedicated 33 kV line. And since we started in 2022, December, we average, availability of power a day is 16 hours average. Except of course, when there is a blackout that is beyond our control, we have a pole that, a faulty pole or something like that, or during heavy rain, a broken cable or something like that. Apart from that, yeah, we've been having consistent power. When I mean consistent power, 16 hours in a 24-hour period. And that's well enough for us to work. We work more like 14 hours shift on a daily basis. If we have work 14 hours shift for 5 days, and Saturday and Sunday, sometimes the team goes home and takes off and relax for the next one. But power has not been a problem in that part of Oyo State that we are located.
Okay, this is actually I'd say a good thing because I think a lot of people get discouraged by this, and I guess for me anyways, the lesson that I'm learning here is that is to look into where you actually want to set up your business and to
Yes,
see whether they're going to have reliable power in that area.
right.
um yeah. Okay, so you mentioned also that you did the cashews and other things, right? Are you
Yeah.
still kind of processing them, or are you still doing anything with the cashew and the coconuts, or you kind of more
No,
focused on palm
no,
kernel?
I'm not processing. We're not processing cashew or coconut. Those would be
Okay.
so raw.
Okay.
Yeah, they just started fruiting. The coconut that we planted in 2022, most of them should reach maturity by December this year, 2024, and
Hmm.
probably early next year. There's some of the cashew that have reached maturity and are already fruiting. And those ones we just, hire people to take out the fruit, eat the apple, and just give us the nuts. So we gather the nuts on a weekly basis and then sell to merchants that are dealing with cashews.
Yeah. So from your experience, I mean, as someone that's actually touched these three crops, which one has been the most difficult to handle? I mean, from your experience and the experience of your team.
Okay, difficult to handle, and that's relative based on our location, based on where we are. And I'll touch briefly on the three crops. They're cash crops. You plant once and you leave them for 30 years minimum, and you don't have to touch if certain conditions are met. And one of the big thing, especially with the palm family, which is coconut and oil palm, is water. Coconut does well where a coconut and oil palm does well when there is enough water, which means you have, considerable amount of rainfall that can sustain their growth. The problem we've had at that location, and probably, many people will blame it on global warming or, you know, is inconsistent rain pattern. And that has affected the growth of the oil palm and the coconut. Now, we planted some in 2019, we planted some in 2022. They've not started fruiting. However, some of the cashews we planted in 2022, 2021, and 2022, and even the one that survived COVID, some of them are already fruiting. And that points us to one thing. Cashew survived even in the face of COVID. And even, lack of rain or inconsistent raining pattern, the cashew survived. And what that taught us was cashew was more resilient to that terrain. And, rightfully so, a lot of cashews are around us, a lot of cashew plantation are around that area. So we took that lesson just last month and decided, okay, we're going to replace the coconut and the oil palm that did not survive. We're going to replace them with all cashews. Now, what we're doing currently, as I speak to you, is to plant 15,000 cashew seedling. We have 7,000 already, but we're planting 15,000 cashew seedling because we have a lot of cashew that survived COVID, and even, during inconsistent raining season, they're still able to survive and start fruiting. So that was what led to the decision to now start doing more of cashew and less of coconut and oil palm.
Wow, wow, wow. That's really interesting. I'm already learning a lot. Okay. And leading on from that question, right? Um, in this business, in this thing that you've gotten into, is there anything
Mhm.
that kind of surprised you? Like, like any part of the business where it's like, wow, I did not think about that. Something that just came from the side and you're just like, wow, like I wasn't prepared for it. That maybe other people can learn from.
Oh, it's human resources, right? Human resources. A lot of farms always have high turnover, and that's one of the major challenge labor, right? Initially, we thought we could get youth in that location, provide jobs for them, bring them on, let them work since they're there. But we were shocked when we found out a lot of the youth are not really interested in even doing anything agri, and for quite a number of reasons. So what we ended up doing is, there are a lot of guys from Benue, a lot of guys from Plateau that would want to work, and would bring them down to Southwest and hire them as farm workers. And at the end of the year, they would go home with a bike. Um, you know, Popular Okada, that is what we give them at the end of the year. In addition to you feeding them, that's the shock. You know, I wasn't ready for that. You have to feed them once a day. And imagine having 100 hectares of farm and you have to hire 15 farm workers apart from your farm supervisors. And for the record, most of my supervisors that are on the farm, because we have different crop sections, and we also, I didn't mention this, we have a livestock section. So I have cows that we're breeding for dairy, and we have goats as well. So what I tend to do is to bring in guys with experience and probably have MSc and be in charge of this crop. I would rather hire somebody with experience and the know-how, technical know-how, no matter what it will cost, versus hiring an amateur and then, let everything go down. And I do think that's what has kept us going so far, that we haven't had too much problems in our crop section and even the livestock section, because most of my guys are actually MSc from University of Ibadan. And I brought them on and make sure that, okay, rather than stay in the city and look for job, just come here, build a farmhouse, hire them. You will feed them once a day, in addition to you paying their salaries. That's the shock.
Wow, that's
Yeah, you
that's
have to
that's
feed
some
them.
cash.
Oh yeah. So imagine imagine now feeding. Right now, I have 5 farm supervisors that are, MSc graduate handling crops. And then I have 15 farm workers that are from all over the place. The laborers, what you call the laborers, we have them. And I have to feed all of these 20 people daily. So what now, gave us was, if we're doing cash crop and we're not making money on a monthly basis, how do we feed these guys? Those were the questions my team and I had to answer and said, okay, what we will then do is start growing certain crops that we will sell and be able to fund the lifestyle on the farm. So we grow maize and some other things, and even some of the animals we sell on a monthly basis. So if I have an animal that gives birth now, we wean the animal and then we sell the animal to fund the feeding of the people working on the farm. Or sometimes we grow maize, and when the maize, we harvest the maize, we sell the maize to the merchant, we get the money to fund the feeding on the farm. We grow cassava, and at the end of the day, some of them we turn to Gary, some of them we sell to local cassava processors, and we use the money to feed. I don't want to now start. Initially, I was using my money, bootstrapping, feeding these guys until we came up with that idea and say, let's be growing crops, be selling some of this, short-term crops, and be using the money to fund them and feed them. You have to feed them, otherwise they would not work for you.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is actually a very, very important point. So for people that live in the Southwest, these are things that they have to think about. And I assume the people in the South as well.
100%.
So you mentioned that there are some reasons why these youth don't want to work on the farms. Why do you
Right.
think that is? Is it a security thing? Is it a pay thing? What's the reason?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of factors. One, I would say security is one of those. Security is one of those, and lack of, vibrant economic activity in those areas is the reason why a lot of people want to migrate. And we've seen a lot of rural to urban migration. That also contributed. Everybody wants to go to the city. I have folks who would tell me, oh, boss, I don't want to do farm work. I just want to do this temporarily to make money and buy bike. And then I will be using the bike using the bike for business. And that would give me daily income. I don't want to stay on the farm where I would only earn a monthly income. So, and rightfully so, everybody wants to migrate to the city where all vibrant economic activities are taking place, and then, leave those areas empty. And what that means is you don't have people living in the rural areas. Everyone is gone because there aren't enough infrastructure to support their lifestyle. And that has left a vacuum where all these ungoverned or uncontrolled spaces, you have criminal elements using those places as, haven to carry out heinous activities. So what you will now end up doing is hire more security and local vigilantes to mount those areas. That is also another shocker.
Oh wow, this is a connection I actually never made, which is the rural to urban migration creating a vacuum or a space for
Yes.
more criminal elements to actually come in. Like I actually surprised I never thought of that. And that's
Yeah.
probably a big thing. Oh wow, okay. So skilled workers, bringing them down from different parts of Nigeria. What has it actually been like working with these workers or these laborers? Is there kind of communication issues, language barriers, or is it kind of worked? This
There aren't communication issues, no. Because the supervisors pretty much communicate because they're also on ground on the farm, hands-on and everything. And the laborers as well, they always have a leader who most of the time is bilingual. So the person, the leader can speak, more than one. A lot of those guys too do understand the local language, and you'll be shocked. They do understand broken English. May not be smooth, but if you communicate with them and tell them this is what you want done, they will be able to do it. And the advantage again is, since it's a field work, you can actually demonstrate without even using speech. You can demonstrate to them what they need to do, and they will do it exactly the way you want them to do it, right? So except for the supervisors where communication is important to them, they can in turn go ahead and demonstrate whatever they want the laborers to do. They demonstrate it for them and they get it done. So in terms of communication, we have not had issues. The only issue we have with a lot of the laborers is because of the work they do and how, you know, tasking or heavy lifting they have to do and how long they have to work, they tend to eat more. What that means is even if you budget certain portion of food for them, they may eat way more than that. And they start rebelling if you do not meet their demands. And since
Oh,
they
wow.
know that you need them more than they need you, they probably will hold you ransom and say, hey, we're not going to work on the farm today. We are going home. And then you will have to start thinking about, oh, we've made a lot of investment in making sure we maintain the crops. If we do not maintain them for the next 1 month, there will be problem. Then sometimes you have to come to the middle ground and agree and things like that. So those are the major issues we've had with some of them. It's that unionization mindset. They try to form a union and say, hey, we won't work because the food you guys are giving us is too small.
Wow, that's
Exactly.
also an unexpected challenge. Okay. And
Mhm.
and this whole thing is happening, right, whilst you're in the States. So
Right.
I'm curious to know, like, I know you said you hired some supervisors, people with good experience, but like how much input on a day-to-day basis like does this take up? Like, does it take up more than you expected, or you kind of trust the guys on ground to just fill you in every once in a while?
I trust the guys on ground to fill me in once in a while. However, I am involved every day. I have cameras all over the farm. I have cameras all over the factory that I look at all the time. So the good thing is my time zone, right? While they are, in the morning, 7 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., it's 12 midnight my time. I can look at the factory, I can look at the farm and say, hey, I don't see these guys here. I see them here. What is going on? I expect you guys to congregate at this point by 7 o'clock and then head out to the field where we want to walk. What I do on a daily basis is meet with the team and make sure we understand, be on the same page on what task we have and follow up with update. So it's not that I just leave them to go to the field and do whatever they like. No, I am also involved on a daily basis and say, hey, this portion of the farm, northwest of the farm that we intend to, for instance, spot weed, what is the status? How many have we spot weeded? How many do we have to go? Oh, this portion of the farm that we need to plant on, what is the status? This portion of the plant that you guys need to take inventory of surviving crops. What is the and each area here, I have a wireless camera that I look at. I may not be able to zoom into the crop itself, but I have a pretty good view of the area. So I told you with a lot of the supervisor, and before I wake up, sometimes they were like, okay, hey, boss, this is what we have here. This is what we have here. This is what we have here. What is the next step? This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. And if anything needs my approval, yeah, I'm always like, one call away and say, this is what we need to do with justification, though. This is what we need to do. And again, I've been blessed with a very good team that knows exactly what to do. And most importantly, they're dedicated. We've had one or two that are not really dedicated, but we had to let him go. For the most part, the ones I've been working with since 2019, I mean, they've been dedicated, know what to do. And, we have a couple of employee incidents here and there, theft here and there, but we've been able to walk through it. You can't erase that. You just have to put countermeasures in place to make sure someone doesn't steal what you've invested a lot. There aren't many things you can steal on the farm. Not on my farm, because you're growing cashew. What can you steal? You're growing coconut. You can't steal a whole tree, right? Maybe fertilizers. It's hard to steal. What else? Any other small, very small, mundane commodity. Apart from that, you can't steal a whole goat. You can't steal a whole cow. It's very hard to steal those things on the farm and run away. So yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to touch on the topic that Nigerians like to talk about, which is the government. What the government can do, what the government cannot do. So,
Oh God.
I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit to ask,
Okay.
if there was like a couple things where you think the Nigerian government can do, either policy wise or whatever, to actually just
Mhm.
make your life that little bit easier or make your
Right.
business run better. What would those
Right.
couple of things be?
Three things that I've always mentioned: access to finance, agriculture, especially primary production, farming, as we call it. is very expensive and risky. Very expensive and risky. Government all over the world subsidize agriculture, and that will bring me to my second point. You have to subsidize input and land preparation. What do I mean? I have 100 hectares of land. When I cleared that land, the cost of clearing will far outweigh the cost of the land. And at that point, I even bought my own bulldozer because it was so expensive to clear the entire land without having your bulldozer. I'm like, okay, we'd rather invest in buying our own bulldozer than just contracting it out and don't have our bulldozers. So if government can, registered farmers or registered organizations that are into agriculture, if government can actually, help them subsidize land preparation in terms of clearing and plowing and tilling, or even smallholder farmers, help them out, because how many smallholder farmers can afford 500,000 per hectare to plow? Very few. So what end up happening is some of the farmers that we help to do land preparation around us, they don't have the money. I have two tractors. I have bulldozers. We assist them out. And that is one of the ways we also make, we generate revenue. We assist them out with tractorization and things like that. And in turn, they'll give us a percentage of what they grow during harvest. They don't have the money. Oh, you're growing soybean, you're growing maize. Okay, by the time you're done harvesting your maize, if you harvest 500 bags, you're going to give us 50 bags. Is that okay? And that's how we've been helping the smallholder farmers around us. If government can step in, subsidize inputs, because some of them don't have cash to go buy input. So subsidize input and land preparation. Those two things will go a long way in helping farmers. And then road infrastructure within the farm. That's always very terrible. It's always very hard sometimes for you to get your commodities from the farm to the market because of bad road, erosion have washed away, the inner road within the farm. So this is where I think the local government needs to step in and say, hey, okay, we know there is a road that leads to this farm. Get it tarred, get it graded, make sure it is motorable, at least for those that are doing farming activities around that area. Those are the main points. Those are the challenges we've had. We've had to grade our own road, maybe like 2 kilometers road from my farm to the road. We had to grade that ourselves, which cost a lot of money because the farmers around, how much do they have? They will manually or use their head or even bike that will get stuck at some point during rainy season to take their commodities to the market, which we cannot afford to do. So we had to invest in grading the road ourselves, which I know a lot of farmers, a lot of guys that are in my shoes that are also here in diaspora and have a farm in Nigeria. We have similar experiences in terms of road infrastructure to the farm, access to finance, and of course, input and land preparation subsidy.
Well said, well said. And it's funny that I had another podcast episode where someone mentioned some of the similar things, especially with the roads,
Mhm.
inputs as well. Yeah, these things are definitely recurring conversations. So I
Yeah.
think the government definitely needs to step in when it comes to that. At the
No, they
start
need
of
to.
this conversation, you did mention that you saw palm oil in the States and you saw it was really expensive, etc. So
Mhm.
do you plan to get into the exports space, or are you trying to just satisfy the local demand first and then see where things go from there?
You can't even meet local demand. And for the record, even palm oil is being imported into Nigeria. Would that shock you? We still import.
Yeah.
Nigeria still imports palm oil. That tells you we don't even have enough. Yep.
And
Yep.
then when it comes to the palm oil in Nigeria, I was speaking to someone about this the other day, but I don't know if he was making this up. But he said that he has some palm plantation going on, but there's a lot of palm that's imported, which actually crashes the price, and that affects the profitability of the palm oil value chain. So is that something that actually affects your business, or do you just find
Yes.
that you can still sell at a good margin?
Yes, it does. It does. And we had that problem as, let me say, 2 weeks ago. We still have, because of we don't produce enough, right? Because we don't produce enough of these things, there are still people that bring them in from neighboring countries, Ghana, Republic of Benin, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. They bring it in to Nigeria. What that means is it will crash the price. Depending on what the dollar is, that's what I just found out. Depending on the dollar rate, it crashes the price. And a lot of people that have invested in buying at a higher rate and storing to sell later, they end up, selling at a loss. And that is what we've seen. That bringing it in across the border also crashes the price. And that's because we don't produce enough locally to meet the demand.
Yeah, that's very true and well said. But also I understand that there's like a seasonality to the palm sector. So isn't that also predictable? Maybe like when there's when the off season you can try and sell it off, or when it's on season you can hold on to it. Like do you implement that kind of strategy in your business, or do you just
Uh,
sell it whenever?
Yeah, you can sell the seasonality. You have to be careful, because when you hold it for too long, it starts degrading, right, in quality, and that would not be good. Depending on the kind of palm oil, but maybe industrial use or for domestic consumption, that depends. Now, in terms of seasonality, though, the seasonality is actually as a result of rain. So think about this: when there is during rainy season, the whole farm gets flooded, right? Or don't let me say flooded. You have a lot of rain on the farm. If you have bad road infrastructure, what does that mean? You're not going to be able to get product out of the farm in timely manner. So going back to the road infrastructure, when there is a lot of rain, there most of the road will not be motorable. So folks will not go to the farm to actually harvest and process palm oil. That in turn creates artificial scarcity. And then you have to
Oh.
wait until the rain is over. Then everybody start going to the farm because now the roads are motorable. There is no rain. And then we're now in season. So that is how it happens.
Oh, right.
Yep.
That also is, yeah, something I was not aware of. Okay. Um,
So,
yeah, this has actually been a very, very insightful conversation. It's like it's almost like a free consultation.
yeah.
But yeah, the information is very, very useful, and I think it will help people that are looking to get into the same stuff actually avoid some of these hurdles, and
Right.
save them a lot of money. So I honestly appreciate you, sharing
No
some of
worries.
this information. So whilst you kind of round things up, I'd like to, ask you if there's any kind of partnership or thing that you're kind of looking for from maybe the audience, that maybe either off takers or suppliers of certain kinds of things that you're looking for, and then also try share your social media or however people can reach out to your company. That would be good.
Okay. So, in terms of partnership, maybe those that can supply palm kernel nuts. Maybe, yeah. In terms of the product, though, we already have like two, three off takers we sell to. We don't even meet the demand for. I have orders to fulfill as we speak that I've not even able to meet. So, um, let me chew. Let me only chew what I. Let me only bite what I can chew. Let me put
Mm.
it that way. But in terms of the raw material, yes, we definitely need a lot of. Not many people get into the raw material, um, commodity, how will I put it? Not many folks do that. Most of the time, the people that do it are the people that have that don't have formal education, right? The old men that have been in the business for, you know, maybe 2 decades. Those are the ones that are into those kind of supplies and they know how to go into the farms and do it. But when we talk about people like you and I have not seen one who has approached me and say, "Hey, I could supply you palm kernel nuts." I haven't seen. I'm not
Mm.
saying there aren't. Maybe I've not met, but yeah, I haven't seen one that would say, "Okay, I want to supply you," because it's capital intensive. The barrier to entry is high. And for the record, my plants can process 40 tons of raw material a day. 40 tons. And we are currently operating at 50% capacity. What that means is we are doing 20 to 25 tons in a 24-hour period. And this is because of the power situation. We only have 16 hours of power in a 24-hour period. Now, if I have to process 25 tons of raw material on a daily basis, the cost of raw material right now is 460,000 naira per ton. It was 485 a week ago. It's now 465,000 naira per ton. Multiply that by 25. That is how much it costs, you know, to to
Wow.
acquire. And then you have someone, I would tell the merchant, I need 100 tons. I need 100 tons of raw material this week. I need 200 tons next week. And you know what that means? You're talking about 80 to 100 million worth of raw material that will be supplied to you. I mean, even if they go to a bank. So a lot of this has to do with capital. It's very capital intensive. That makes the barrier to entry very high. So not many people get into it. Not many people.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's I'm just doing the numbers in my head, and it's like, okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Okay,
Yes.
and yeah, I just find it quite interesting as well that people are not really looking at this space, and but I do understand, like, from the challenges that you've mentioned, the why people wouldn't want to get into it. So but I do think that Nigeria needs to get back to where we once were when it comes to the palm industry
Exactly.
globally. um
Yes.
oh yeah, another quick question I wanted to touch is like the
Mhm.
the variety or the species of, do you
Right.
grow the short ones, the tenera, or whatever it's called?
Yes, Tenera. Tenera. Not
Okay.
we don't grow either the Dural, Pizzifera, it's a Tenera. With the Tenera, that's the widely grown species in Nigeria. I know a lot
Okay.
of people, a couple of people have said super gene. I have not really seen super gene being grown. Well, a couple of folks claimed that they've grown super gene, but I've not seen the yield. We've not done any lab analysis on it. But the bigger the industry giants, they go with Tenera.
Okay. Okay. Wow, this has been great. This has been great. Thank you so much, Leke, for taking the time to give this
Thanks,
information.
Malone.
And yeah, I'm sure people are going to learn a lot, and
Yeah.
people are gonna, yeah. Oh yeah, how can people reach out to you if they want to supply those palm kernel seeds?
Yeah, that's on Twitter. Let me see on Twitter. Okay, I can drop my number. I mean, um, that's my number. That's my number right there. Just in case they want to.
Okay,
I can
awesome. I'll leave that.
yeah.
I'll leave that in the description of the video when we post it on different platforms, so people can reach out to you.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right,
That's fine. You know what? Let me give you my Airtel number. I think my Airtel number would be better. Um,
fantastic.
yeah. I think my Airtel number would be better. Let me do the Airtel line. Okay. Let me send that to you. I'll send you my Airtel number. This is my MTN number that I use for a lot of things. So I would want to separate people reaching out to me from. So I'll give you my Airtel number. I'll send that to you.
Thank you so much. This has been great. I wish you a lovely rest of the day and good luck with your business. Keep pushing on and don't let the Nigerian economy frustrate you.
No, we no go agree for anybody. We are all Nigerians. Nigeria and
Amazing,
Nigerians will
amazing.
wrestle. We will wrestle it.
No,
Nobody
for
can
sure,
build it
for
for
sure.
us. We will be the one to build it. We will be the ones to build it. Yeah,
Exactly. Honestly, we have no choice but ourselves. We have to make it work. So,
that's
yeah,
it. That's the only, is that the only option? If that's the only option we have, that is the only option we have. And that's the route we have to go.
exactly, exactly. Well said, well said. All
Right.
right. It's been a
Thanks.
good one. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a nice day.
You too.
Mhm.
This podcast is sponsored by Kadan Kadan.